timely fashion. So
Sure. Well, Tom goes first.
makes sense. Temporarily true.
Yeah, fair enough.
And we're live with the Metal Lab. It's Monday. How's everybody doing? I am joined this week by Tom.
Good evening, everybody.
And Mike.
Hello.
And we are absent one Jay, unfortunately. He is out sick. Hope he gets better soon. Luckily, a lot of what we're going to be talking about this week, it does involve Jay,
Yes.
especially on Tom and Mike's side, apparently, as he mentioned. So, this week we are discussing WKOs. We've all went to one this weekend. We have a This Week in HeroClix episode. Even it's kind of exciting. So looking forward to a whole lot of that. Talking about that. So how do we want to do this, guys? Do we want to start with the guy who's going to take the least amount of time, or do we want to start with the guy who went out first? We're going to start with the guy who went out first, and that's
Sure.
Tom.
All right. Well, yeah, let's dive right in. It was a big weekend of WKOs for the Metal Lab, and so Jason and Mike were both able to go to the local one on Whitby on Sunday, and we'll get to those later. As for me, I went with our friends and the occasional guests, Devin and Emily, as well as every week standby Jay, and we all drove down together to WNY in Buffalo, New York, or I guess Hamburg, New York, technically just outside Buffalo, to participate in the WKO there. It was wonderful, and this is the time which I feel incumbent upon me as the representative of this trip to say that we had a great trip, and we once again were warmly welcomed at the store. I really love WNY Gaming. If anybody ever has a chance to play there, it's a wonderful, warm, and very welcoming atmosphere. It's the little things that make a store the difference between just the roof over your head while you're playing and the place that really makes you feel like a welcome part of the adventure. And so they're very kind. Everyone there that shows up is in good humor and good spirits, even in a competitive setting, which I'm always happy about. The store themselves, they know their stuff, they know their HeroClix, they're happy to chat. They'll buy pizza for everybody so that we can all get the pizza from them and have lunch without having to go and forage for ourselves. And they always run a great tournament. They were kind enough to run a battle royal in the period between Swiss and the cut to top 8, so that if anyone was in top 8 and wanted to play, they accommodated for it. It wasn't one of these things where you couldn't do it because there'd be a 5-minute overlap or something. It was really just the little things that make a big difference. So I want to thank the guys at the venue, because it was really a great time, and they deserve it. We talked about it before going on the show that we didn't want to go into laborious detail in every round of the tournaments, because there were a lot of HeroClix to play this weekend, and so we're going to go. I'm going to do a fairly quick blow by blow. I do want to get a few points out of the way at the beginning so that I don't have to talk about it every time, because there are some things that are universally true. One of the things was that all the opponents I faced were really great to play against. I was so happy to have had the opportunity, especially having not played a lot of HeroClix in the last couple or 3 months, to have a day that really there was no one who was just getting butthurt. There was nobody who was just a pain, or this community is mostly good, but every now and again there are people who aren't, and it's a wonderful thing to go to a tournament where, without exception, you face people who are great to play against, who are smart players. They're all really talented players. It's but very rewarding in a competitive setting to play against people who are good. What's happening?
What?
Sorry, I'm being distracted. Sorry about that. Anyway, I will, as I was saying, I really was happy with everybody who I had a chance to play. And I'll just step out of the way so that I can be helped here. And thus, if I don't gush about everybody individually while I'm going through the rounds, it's only because everybody is gushable. The other thing I wanted to say, I wasn't playing a theme team. I never won map. So if ever I describe what map we were on, it was a map they chose. I played seven rounds, 7 theme teams. Never won a map even once. So I was always the second player, but that's okay. And so as to what the team stuff was, a little bit of backstory here. For a couple of years ago, Devon, we all know Devon. He's the current reigning and defending Canadian provincial champion and one of the best HeroClix players I think any of us know. Canadian national champion, I should say. It's a nation. Devon was having a lot of success a couple of years ago playing Witch Queen teams, and I got the story slightly wrong. I thought that he, during his reign of Witch Queen, went to New York and played with Witch Queen. As it turns out, he later clarified for me that that was not the case. But anyway, it matters for the story. He certainly won at least one, if not a couple of fairly substantial local tournaments with Witch Queen, and went on to play Witch Queen in Philadelphia for Worlds that year. And so he had a lot of success and did a lot of good work with it. And it was, I think, after Devon that Mike took over the mantle of playing Witch Queen for a time.
With to great unsuccess.
But the important part was you played it. And I remember at one point we went down to New York to the venue in Hamburg there. And Ricky from New York was playing a Witch Queen team, and so when we were all in the WhatsApp chat talking about what we were all going to be available for in the weeks ahead, then I said I was available to go to New York and was happy to drive people because I have a new car and I'm really happy with it. And Devon sort of said, "Oh, is it your turn to play Witch Queen, Tom?" And so I took this as a challenge, which I then dubbed the Witch Queen Challenge, and have since formalized. And everyone who was in the car knows it, but I now need to make it official by broadcasting it to the internet. At which point everything becomes real. So from this point forward, I want us to adhere to the Witch Queen Challenge, which means that when we go back to WNY Gaming, while Witch Queen is legal, then we all have to make our way through the Witch Queen Challenge. So, Mike, you're off the hook. You've already done it. Devon's off the hook. I'm off the hook. But Jason, you're on the hook. Emily,
we need to go before Doom comes out. We got to go before Dr. Doom comes out.
Hey, make it happen, man. The Witch Queen Challenge must continue. So anyway, this is my time to take the Witch Queen Challenge. And so my Witch Queen variation was Witch Queen with Nightbringer, which was Mike's idea, and a very good idea at that. I had originally been leaning towards Mjolnir with her, which was something that Devin and I have been talking about. And Mjolnir on her is awesome, especially with access to WWE powers. But I definitely found that in games where she was being aggressive, I often wouldn't even have time to get equipped. I just needed to get out there. And at that point, she's aggressive enough. It's the games where she's not being super aggressive that I've got time to equip. And usually in those games, I want a bit more defense. So giving her stealth and the ability to give herself her own hindering really goes a long way. She's very vulnerable to outwit. And so Nightbringer went a really long way to making sure that she couldn't have her mastermind taken away, or she couldn't have her speed power taken away. I mean, she could, obviously, by stealth busting outwit, but that's still not as easy to come by as just regular old outwit is, which is very easy to come by these days. And so Nightbringer went a really long way. So Witch Queen brought a Nightbringer for her. Eddie Guerrero.
Viva la raza!
Right? The very best. If you've got to play a piece like Witch Queen that can't afford to miss, you want to play the best prob in the game, and that's Eddie. If it's not Kiwa, at least. And Eddie, in addition to that, is just an amazing piece. He's also extremely hard to target, both with the WWE team ability and coupled with the fact that he's got super senses, even once you do get next to him and you can't outwit it because you can't target him when he's on top. And he takes a couple of hits just to hit the stop click, then he heals off it, then you got to hit him again on the stop click, then you got to hit him again to finish him off. And any time that he's on a blue click or he's on that first click, you're not targeting him from far away. So he's a real pain to try to get rid of, and he has the best props going. So Witch Queen and Eddie, natural combination. At that point, and I also should say that I had the spin ring on the team with the intention of giving it to Eddie whenever I had time to do so that he can be a TKer for me, and also the ability to just move somebody one square. I mean, if he was moving Witch Queen one square up, and then she could continue to carry him from there between her access to nimble and sidestep, she does, after all, get the WWE powers because Eddie was on the team, then that's 4 movement any turn for free before you actually have to commit to doing anything. So that's a lot of mobility, and it really went a long way. So that was the core, was Witch Queen with Nightbringer when I could get it equipped, Eddie with Spin when I could get it equipped. About 2/3 of the game, I actually managed to get these things equipped, or at least one of them. 1/3 of the time, the tempo of the game is such that they just sat there and I did other things. That is the nature of the game these days. I think that special objects, you have to build with them in mind to be optional, unless you're absolutely certain you can get equipped right away, or you've got a sort of a team that can afford to take the time, which I didn't think I did, so I was glad to be flexible. That's 230 points down, so I rounded it out with Groot, because Groot's amazing, and obviously the Walking Woods are great for being able to help with the equipping piece. Carnage, because I did the math and figured I had 10 points that I wanted to put towards the character, and he's my favorite of the 10-point character retails. Yep, big fan of Carnage. The Pim Tank is on every team that I play, because I think it's endlessly useful, and I love it.
Tom
It's
only
also
plays 290-point teams. We know
that's 292. Yeah. It's also outstanding mastermind fodder, because since you can't carry a standard base and a tiny these days, you can still carry a standard or tiny, and the tank can follow you. So Witch Queen always has the tank nearby as mastermind fodder, and if it ever becomes useful, then awesome. Speaking of mastermind fodder, I've had 5-point tribbles on there who could produce more and more tribbles to be never-ending, inexhaustible mastermind fodder if need be. And then the Stark Tower bonus gave me a Crimson Sage prob on every game because I never won map. And I have rounded it out with 4 student IDs, those being Beast, Cyclops, Iceman, and Jean, with the usual suspects on those. And the IDs for the Storm Wanted poster with both an Asgardian Storm and SR Prime Shadow King Storm, who was the one I used in every single game, so I might as well just add her. And Iceman Faculty. So that was the team, and I will go through briefly what the matches were all about. I should probably mention the team is not based on a trick. The Witch Queen, Eddie, and other things team is not out there to try to do a specific thing. There were lots of ID characters so that if I could let them do the work and never have to put Witch Queen in a position to potentially miss an attack and lose her power, I was happy to do that. However, when you have to go on the attack, it's hard to go wrong with a 12 attack and your opponents can't modify, and Pulse Wave goes an awfully long way as well. Super good power. The fact that she's enough point to call in Prime Storm at 150 so that you've got a second source of running shot Pulse Wave is really awesome, along with her own retaliation and her knockback power. Like, she's a team killer, is that Storm call in, so that was certainly great to have. And otherwise, it's just quite a solid team of good pieces that I was hoping would be flexible enough to, if it's a high tempo game, it can get the work done. If it's a low tempo game, it can afford to be safe and just get what points it has, and I can try to be flexible to the matches. So now we come to the fast part, which is the matches. And I'm sorry for anybody I played if I'm not giving you a full shrift, but we gotta get out of here at some point tonight. So my first match was a guy against a gentleman named Chris. I played him before. He's a wonderful guy. He was playing a Wakanda themed team with double Chase Black Panther. This would be the prehistoric Black Panther, along with the Queen Shuri, LE figure, the Wakandan scientist, and Everett K. Ross. So the great thing about this for him is that he goes on to the Savage Land map, which is very hard to get around, and you've got near constant hindering, which means those Black Panthers are a real problem. You can't ever target them when they're occupying printed hindering, and they always were. And that means that you're dealing with that 19 defense super senses whether you want to or not. And I don't like my chances with that with Witch Queen. One good super sense roll, and then she loses all her speed powers. That was pretty disheartening. So what I was able to do was use that power somewhat to my advantage, because I managed to call in a storm, perplex over damage, and go for a running shot Pulse Wave, in which the Black Panthers were simply ignored, so it became a single target Pulse Wave against Queen Shuri, which one-shot her. Being able to get that out and then pull back a bit with the team forced him to cross the map and come to me because he was on tilt, and he had the option of either overextending his reach and having to go right next to me, whereupon my team could jump on him, or come halfway and give me the opportunity to tie him up before he could go the rest. He chose half. I got the Walking Woods in there to try to lock down his Black Panthers. That was all they were going to do, or that's all I intended for them to do. But then one of them massively overachieved by KOing a Black Panther with a flurry, backed up with all the probs. It just hit both attacks, and he missed the super senses. So one Black Panther went down that way. He got some damage out on Eddie Guerrero, but then a Carnage Retail missed but produced a symbiote, and between the symbiote and the other 2 Walking Woods, it was just a flurry of constant attacks until the Black Panther was dead. So that certainly worked in my favor, being able to take out Queen Shuri quickly and then kind of control the pace from there. The second match was against Devin, and I did not go into the match honestly expecting to win or even trying to. What I was more interested in doing, because I had beaten his team. He was playing a Hellfire Club team with Jason Wingard and Gene, as well as a couple Tri-Sentinels and some other stuff. I can't remember what the rest of that team is. What am I forgetting? Oh, Magnetos, 2 Magnetos, and a whole bunch of sidelines and stuff like that. And Devin, as we've said, is an amazing player. I think he's a better player than I am, and I always go into it expecting to be playing from behind. As I said, I managed to defeat that team by the skin of my teeth after Devin kind of gave me an opportunity that I knew he would never give me again back in practice. So my thought here was, I'm 1-0. I could afford to take the loss if I can get the points, and if I can watch what Devin's doing, then maybe I can figure out how best to counteract it if we meet again in top 8. And if I don't make top 8, I'll just play Battle Royals. I figured, what's the problem? I'm just here to take the Witch Queen challenge. And then I completely fell on my own rake because right out the gate, he gave me the opportunity to shoot a Tri-Sentinel with a Cyclops call in. I took it. I came out. I rolled a 3. I probbed it into a crit miss and thought, boy, this is not going well. And I got that thing that happens where you focus on trying to make this interaction work as opposed to winning the game. So I'm like, well,
I'm supposed to be winning this.
my best odds of making this interaction work will be to take this crit miss, call in a Firestorm, because Firestorm brings his own prob, and I still had Eddie's prob, and between all the above, I can certainly finish this off. So I tried. Firestorm missed. I probbed it. I missed. Eddie probbed it. I still missed. And after all was said and done, that gave him a layup to come Colossal Retaliate, destroy a bunch of the terrain, mostly pack down my whole team. It left Witch Queen and Eddie out there, which is most of the team as far as points are concerned. But they, Witch Queen took some damage, and then Eddie took a bit of damage from the terrain. That opened him up to do the Jean Grey, Jason Wingard cross the map, blow stuff up. He dropped a tank on me, did a whole bunch of damage. Eddie was down to his second last click after healing. Witch Queen was near the end of her dial. There was no way I was coming back. I just wanted points. So I managed to get the tank. I got the Tri-Sentinel, and I pulled off a great Hail Mary that would have gotten Jean Grey if it hadn't been for those nasty rolls. So it was kind of a bad dice game, and it was certainly a bad strategy game. Devin creamed me in that one, and I was back to my place. In the third round, I took on a gentleman named Charles. This was almost the opposite because that was such a bombastic, explosive game against Devin. The Charles game was a real chess match. He was playing a Cosmic Theme team with a double Astronomer, both with the Power Gem, Mr. Oz, Starfire, Groot, and Flora. Took us to Galador, which is, of course, an amazing map for astronomers. And then it became a bit of a chess match. He didn't want to give up anything more than I did. He was able to take out Carnage with a Cyclops call-in, and I didn't think it was worth trying to get his Groot with the same tactic because I would have had to move out too far. So instead I just moved up slowly with the whole team, separated out so he couldn't just Starfire Pulse Wave to take out all the little guys. I kept one triple here, one triple over here so that there was always access to generating triples when I needed them. To make a long story short, because interaction wise, it was a series of move up a little, move back, move up, move back, move back. And we were both doing this, taking pot shots where we could, taking out pogs and just tempting the other person to come and Colossal Retaliate, and it's never really worth it because you'll be giving up more points than you'll get. In the end, he did come in with a Starfire, trying for a big attack that would have taken out Groot, and then he could have pulled back, but he missed, left Starfire in a position where I was able to take advantage with Witch Queen, hitting her with knockback to KO her all in one go, because you can do that with Starfire, of course. And that triggered his Groot's retaliation that killed it missed my Witch Queen, but it hit my Groot, created somebody that whacked Eddie down to near his bottom of his dial. And at that point, I took out his Groot and was ahead on points, and was able to just make sure that he couldn't seal round it out because his Astronomer couldn't target Eddie, and I kept getting people in the way of Witch Queen and kept being able to sloth off damage on tribbles. Then they called time. Had it gone one more turn, I'll bet he could have KO'd my tank, which would have given him the lead. Had it gone 2 turns, I was poised to take out his Astronomer, which would have given me a substantial lead. Then he would have had to take out Eddie to get the lead back. It was one of those. It was anyone's game, and at the time it ended, it was mine, so I got lucky. Joe was my 4th opponent in Swiss, who I love facing Joe. He's one of my favorite guys to play against. He's hilarious, but in this case he was playing a real oppressive team that I want to shake my fist at the sky about. He was playing an Earth X Iron Man with the Stark Tower bonus, so Pog Generation Part 1. He was playing Isaac, Pog Generation Part 2, and he was playing Perez Ricard with the Zero Ring. So you can probably see where this is going.
I know this team.
He never has to go anywhere as long as he wins map. He can barrier all the time between all the Zero Ring and the Pogs from Isaac. He can barrier all the time, and then he just floods the map with bystanders. He's also got a Cyclops Sentinel sitting back, ready to blast through blocking terrain and take you out, and a Tri-Sentinel as well, ready to...
This team.
Yeah. He's a Tri-Sentinel and a Cyclops Sentinel. And so this was very much a math game for me, and the math worked like this. I was not going to deal with another Tri-Sentinel retaliation, and I knew that Joe was not going to make it at all easy for me to take the Tri-Sentinel out, so I had to try to figure out a way to get the lead without doing that, and so I just did the math. I figured he will probably take Groot and Carnage, that's 30 points. He'll probably take the Tribbles, that's 35. He'll probably take the Pym Tank at its small form, that's 43. His Cyclops Sentinel is 50, which means I can afford up to 2 student ID call-ins, plus everything else, to still be leading if I can use those call-ins and everything else to get the Cyclops Sentinel. So that was the priority, and that's what happened. I mean, to make a long story short, he came out, he tried to hit the tank, he wasn't able to, he couldn't get the Cyclops Sentinel back far enough. Was able to call somebody in. I completely mispositioned and forgot to perplex up damage on Jean, so what should have been a one-shot on the Cyclops Sentinel instead threatened to just knock him onto his last click and produce a head. And then I crit hit, and it turned out that it took out the Cyclops Sentinel anyway. Sorry, Joe. My own bad positioning wound up not being a problem for me after all. And after that, I went turtle. I basically tried to stay away from the rest of his team and just wend my way across the field towards his starting area so that I could try to do some damage there. And they called time before I could get there. So I wasn't trying to be cheesy about it, but I knew that the math was in my favor, and if he wasn't going to come out, then I wasn't going to work too hard on forcing him to. So that got me into the top 8 at 3-1. I went into the first round of the top 8 against Jay, and I was very much taking this game seriously. Jay certainly beat the crap out of me the last time that we played. He was playing more or less the same team, a Cosmic Theme team with Unseen, Lockjaw, Q Prime, Trader, Groot, and 3 Floras. And I kind of did the same math here. I figured he would likely take Groot, Carnage.
I'm just going to fulfill Jay's team because he's in the chat. He had a Nightbringer ring for the Unseen, WWE ring, and a Wolverine and Magneto bounty card, Student Beast, Cyclops, Iceman, Jean, and Rusty cards.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Jay, if we make fun of Jay on the show, and so I don't know, maybe
because he's too damn good.
Well, that's just it. Newer listeners may not realize that we rib him and stuff because he's one of the best players that I know, and certainly he rarely makes mistakes, and he knows exactly what he's doing. So I had to take this game pretty seriously.
He knows the rules better than anybody. Like really, right. it's the nuances of the rules interactions. So Jay doesn't make the mistakes on how things work together like we sometimes do.
Well, and he knows but he also supplements that by knowing the figures so well. I mean, he doesn't need to pick up the cards. He doesn't need to look at them. He knows the figures. He knows the strategy. So you can almost never surprise him. And in this case, he was ready to come in and immediately KO my spin ring before I could equip it, and also fill a starting area so I couldn't create any walking woods. So I was already a little bit behind my usual in terms of figures on the board and the ability to equip objects. And without the spin ring, my reach was greatly reduced. So it was clear it was going to have to be a battle of inches. So again, I started doing the math and kind of figuring, well, knowing Jay, he will know well enough to take out my Colossal Retaliators. So that's 30 points he's going to get. He's already got 5 points from one of the rings. I made sure to equip the other one so he couldn't get that. He'll get Tribbles if he wants to, and eventually he did. That's 35. That's 40 points so far. He'll probably get the tank at some point. That'd be 48. I'll be able to get his Groot probably. It's not that easy to protect a Groot. So that would give me 20, which means I've got to get, at minimum, another 29 plus points. And then after that, it's going to be harder for him to get points, and it's going to be harder for me, which meant that the best option was to try to get Q. I figured he would never put Q in line of fire, so instead the focus was going to be on Trader. And so we went forward. Things more or less went as I expected. He started pinging the Retaliators. He did give me an opportunity to get Q with a tank. It would have put me behind on points, but I think that with Q gone, I could press the advantage and try to still get Trader. So that's what I went for. I missed it. And in the end, it turned out to be for the best because he followed up, but brought Q forward not very far forward. He was still at the back of his line, but it was into exactly the right square. This is in order to have dice replacement on one of his call-in attacks to KO something of mine. I think it might have been my group, but I honestly can't remember. But it was to the point where it was in exactly the right square that if I called in Prime Storm, perplexed up her range, and did a running shot pulse wave, even though Witch Queen herself would be caught in the pulse wave, the edge of it would just get Q as well. So I put everything into making sure that hit, got all my probs on it. It did hit. That took out Q, and I figured I'd already taken out Groot, or I was poised to take out Groot at that point, and I figured at that point I've got 50 plus points. He needs to KO Witch Queen and Eddie in order, or one of the two, in order to get the lead from this point forward. So I have to protect them as best I can. So I focused on defense, played conservatively, pulled back. He pulled forward. I took attacks of opportunity, took out a Flora, tried to take out a different Flora. I don't know if I ever got the second one, but eventually they called time when I was slightly ahead on points. It was one of the best games I played in a long time. I took a little more time on that one because it was a real nail biter of a game. He got an early lead. I got some lead back with Q, but then he was able to close that gap a little bit. Then I widened the gap a little bit with Flora. It was as close to a chess game as they ever come, and there were no weird aberrant dice rolls. There wasn't one of these games where something weird happens that nobody expects and it completely throws everything. It was a cerebral game from the beginning to the end, and I really was very happy with it. I love playing a good game of HeroClix. Winning, it's really nice too, but even if I hadn't, I was really happy to play that kind of a chess game. The top four was against Weston, another great player. He was also playing Hellfire Club, but his flavor was with two Jasons, along with a Jean, a Dark Phoenix, and a Magneto. He wasn't quite sure what my team did. He took us to the Skull Island or the Skull Camp map, and I knew that the starting area is because they're 2 deep and the elevated is 3 deep. If I stayed up there, then he might have a hard time targeting me, and so I was hoping that he would cross the map to come to me. He played more conservatively than I was used to with Devon. Came out and called in a Cyclops to KO my Groot, but left Jean at a place where I worked really hard to try to figure out a way to KO Jean in one go, and I was able to do so. It required the tank. I needed to come out, hit with a Cyclops that would knock her to not her stop click, but the first one before it, so that dropping a tank on her would then breeze right past it because you don't hit stop when there's a tank involved. And so I did that to get the advantage, even though I was giving up the tank points, but I couldn't poof Cyclops. He subsequently KO'd the tank and was able to get to Cyclops, but only by taking out a 75-point beast that he couldn't poof. And then I was able to get on top of the beast and take him out to get the lead back. At this point, Dark Phoenix came in and became a complete wrecking ball. Between destroying the Walking Woods and the Tribbles and everything else, she was healing. She turned into a huge monster. She healed something like 4 or 5 damage in that game. I was poised to take her out on one term, insofar as Eddie Guerrero was able to make 3 attacks against her, and a Walking Wood was able to make 2, but none of them hit. 5 attacks with probs, and they all missed. So it was a bad turn, and it left alive a Dark Phoenix that proceeded to start pinging away the rest of my team. But the theme of the day is if you can't take Eddie and Witch Queen, you're not taking that many points. So by the time they called time, I was still ahead in the points, even though he would probably done more damage. And he was poised to win the long game. But this team was designed to last 45 minutes. It probably wasn't going to last an hour and 15. And that took me to the finals, which was against a gentleman named Bill, which is a great pleasure to play him. And it was a completely different game than the entire day up until that point. It was a 25-minute game. It was 3 rounds long. This was a wild endeavor. After a series of these chess match, slow back and forth point finding games, this game was an explosion. He was playing a cosmic theme team that were 3 astronomers, all with the time gem, just oppressive prob, a Voyager to carry them up, a Groot, and both Qs, the prime and the non-prime. So we had double dice replacement, free attacks, prob on everyone, and Voyager to carry them around along with Groot. So he wins. He takes us to the King's Tomb or whatever it's called. And on his first turn, he carries as far as he could with Voyager to drop off the astronomers to get into position so they were exactly in the right place to be able to lay down hindering and blow up my people in my starting area. So he was poised to take out all of my...
Are these gardeners and not astronomers?
Sorry, I meant gardeners. Yeah, it's
There we go.
very important. Yeah. Sorry, that was a pretty important distinction, because within the King's Tomb, it's so hard to get around. They can just stand behind all the walls, drop their hindering over in my starting area, and blow up all my guys. And he was ready to do that as of turn 2, because on turn 1 he was all the way across the map. The queues followed along as well, so they were ready with their dice replacement. He rolled a 2 and a 3 respectively for that. So on the top of turn 1, he had basically gone 75% of the way across the board and was poised to start taking out my whole team. And so I couldn't possibly play slow or thoughtful. Instead, what I did was I called in a Cyclops to blow out a wall that would give Witch Queen a path, and I then perplexed up the movement on Crimson Sage so that I would have a prob in the area. She flew up and get herself into position, and then I used Nimble to move forward 1, Sidestep to move forward 2, full movement of Witch Queen to get into position to pulse wave his entire team. Got the hit on the second one, so thank heavens Crimson Sage was there. So that KO'd both queues. It did did 1 damage each to Voyager and all 3 astronomers. At that point, it was Eddie who'd called in Cyclops. I then used Grand Entrance to poof Cyclops because I still hadn't done anything, even though I'd taken out both of his queues and done damage to his whole team. Everything was good. Devin walked by and heard me say, "All right, I'm going to use Grand Entrance," and later was like, "This is the first turn." Anyway, at the bottom of the first turn, I was winning. Top of the second turn, he KOs Witch Queen. The astronomers, one of them takes out Carnage, the other one takes a pot shot at Witch Queen, the third one fails to hit Groot, and that was very important. He colossal retaliates with his Groot, hits Witch Queen, creates a Walking Wood. The Walking Wood fails to finish off Witch Queen, but the other 2 astronomers all do. So between the astronomers' free attacks and their actual attacks, they rip through Witch Queen in 1 turn. And now I down a Carnage, down a Witch Queen, but my Groot is alive. So the bottom of turn 2, I retaliate with Groot against one of his astronomers. Gardeners, thank you. I hit, so I generate a Walking Wood. I then use Groot's actual action to attack his Groot, hit there, generate another Walking Wood. Walking Wood comes forward and flurries, KOs one of the Gardeners with the first attack. The second attack is against Voyager, and she was standing next to a wall, and I said, okay, if I hit, I guess I'm looking for doubles, trying to knock you back. And so I rolled a 10, 2 5s, knocked her back into the wall. Devin leans over and says, "What are you calling your shots now?" The other Walking Wood comes in, flurries, kills another one of the Gardeners. So now it's the bottom of turn 2, and all that's left of what started on the board really is like my Groot and my Eddie Guerrero and some Pogs versus 1 Gardener and some Pogs. So his Pogs cut closer. They lock down Eddie. His astronomer gets into a better position, but couldn't quite get, or Gardner gets to a better position, but couldn't quite get away from Crimson Sage, who then incapacitates him to do 1 more damage because he was pushed out at the time. And I pushed my Walking Wood to flurry, and 1 of the attacks had to hit. 1 of them did. That was the end of Astronomer. That was the end of the game. Top of the third turn, it was over. After an entire day of cerebral chess, it was a giant explosion, and my dice just were rolling like gold. Man, I can't fault Bill. I mean, what are you gonna do? I knew I had to take out the queues fast, so they went down immediately. But then so did Witch Queen, and that should have been game. But the dice did it, and Groot was almost a win condition for me. So that was my tournament, and I won. I was very happy. I had a great time. I've completed the Witch Queen challenge, and now I will pass that mantle on to the next. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Thank you. That sounded like an exciting old time. And Jay wanted to point out, Jay's been in the chat, kind of chatty today.
Yes.
He loved the irony of Groot being the final thing to kill the Gardener.
Yes.
The tree's got a problem with the garden.
That's right. Sorry, I went a little long there.
No, that's
anyway,
all right.
That was
That's right. Mike, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You can go first if you want.
Yeah, you should go first.
Right, cool. Yeah, because I have 1 less round than Mike. Spoiler alert.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Well, like we said, we went to WKO in Whitby. It's been since Popper States that I have really turned on the gas for a game of HeroClix. So I was feeling rusty coming in. My team was a mystical themed team with 7 figures on the board, which was the Undertaker, Sheriff Strange, a Tri-Sentinel, Alex Wilder, Billy Batson, and 2 Wendigos. So 7-figure mystical theme team. I had a spin ring for some extra mobility and exospecs to put on the Undertaker. I said it once in the day, and I'm going to say one of the best things in the world to say is the Undertaker chooses hypersonic. It was backed up by 7 ID cards as well as 2 trouble alerts. I always keep Firestorms in my pocket because I hate my dice. And my ID card choices were both a wanted poster and teacher ID of Storm, giving me 2 Asgardians in the sideline. Thanks, Amber, for being married to me when we went to Memphis. A student Cyclops, a student Jean Grey, a student Beast, a student Iceman, and a wanted poster Magneto, which turns out I didn't actually own. Thank you, Emily, for loaning that to me. And I really had 1 figure for each thing. So the Cyclops was the super rare. The Jean Grey was the chase. Perpetually at 90 because only Undertaker was going to call her in anyway. Beast was at 40 at all times. Cyclops was at 50 at all times. And I had the Iceman with just a Colossal. And pretty much stayed 100 points for most of my games. Magneto's for most games was 25, but there was a couple games where I brought him out at 100. Just because I felt like the Undertaker was relatively safe those games. My first round was up against David C., one of our patrons, who's got a couple questions for the end of the show in the patron Discord. His team was Andre the Giant, Finn Balor from the WWE Mixed Tag Classic, or Mixed Match Challenge. Thank you. And the Eddie Guerrero as well, along with Perez Rickard and an ID card and some rings. I think it was Ben and there were rings. So this was a matter of Andre the Giant has a huge defense. It's an unavoidable fact about Andre the Giant. And so my goal was to get some damage on Andre the Giant and try to get the Wendigos to work. Because one of the things that my team has a lot of is range, but his team initially outclasses me in close combat. He's got 3 guys that are really good at close combat, and I have 3, but 2 of them are only really good once somebody takes damage.
Hey, Jay, real quick, spin ring and influence ring plus the mace.
Thank you.
That's what he had.
That's what it was. Spin, influence, and mace. Cool. So my goal in this was, with the Iceman at 100 points, called him in with the Undertaker to get that first. Like, I put everything into attack on the Iceman because my goal here was to just get that 1 damage on Andre the Giant, open up the wounded tokens, and then go to town with Wendigos. So that's what I did. I just went to town with Wendigos after that. And between the free attacks and the steel energy, and he was actually close enough for me to charge Flurry on the initial go. Like, I had a lot of attacks going into Andre the Giant. I averaged about 1 hit per Flurry, which got me 1 healing on each of the Wendigos. And then he wasn't able to really follow up on an attack after the fact. Like, he didn't really get the crackback on me from Andre the Giant. So the Wendigos were starting to feed on the steel energy and really collect clicks of damage, clicks of health. One of them, not so much. The other one was really kind of deep into the dial. He was able to get a coup de grace on me with the he used coup de grace on that one, which ignores the defense power, so he did kill one of the Wendigos. He also managed to get managed to get my Tri-Sentinel after I used it to get a damage off on a move action. There was no position for me to do the fake Colossal Retaliation with him in that situation, so I just didn't bother with it. But I got the 1 damage on to get some extra range attacks as an option. But ultimately, this game came down to the Wendigos doing a lot of work. They did a lot of my heavy lifting, and really it was all just started with that Iceman charge in, ping Andre the Giant for one damage, and that's really all it takes to get those Wendigos hungry and going. And that's like really how that whole game kind of felt to me. And Dave played the best that he could, but the Wendigos just started getting overwhelming and more. And my dice were hot in this game, and I always feel bad when like the games where I've got that reputation of having bad dice. When my dice are good, I actually feel bad. So the dice went really well for me, and I was able to kill I got everything on his team. Went into the next round with 300 points, where I was up against Stan. one of the most pleasant players you'll ever play against. He's always got a smile on his face, winning or losing. Stan's team, as is often the case with Stan's, was probably one of my car payments if I had a car. It was the Ultra Chase Thanos at 110 points. The Chase, what's it called? Chase Captain Marvel, and the Dark Phoenix Colossal.
I can tell you that I just got a car, and that's more than one of my car favorites.
So, yeah. The way I looked at this is I wanted to force Stan to kind of react and go as far forward as he could, by doing. This is the one and only time I really did the fake colossal retaliation with the Tri-Sentinel. So those of you who aren't familiar, Surtur and Tri-Sentinel, you can trigger the Colossal Retaliation regardless of having somebody to target with the retaliation, and as a result, you don't do anything, but you do still resolve the action, and as a result, you get the after resolution effect, so you could destroy a bunch of blocking after doing a bunch of moving, which is what I did to kill his Dark Phoenix and force a kind of a reaction out of him on that one. My follow-up on that was to try to do a call-in with a Magneto, and it didn't go so well. But I ended up getting some damage on the Captain Marvel, and this was a reflection of how long it's been since I've really been putting some effort into competitive play. I went and did 4 damage to that thing with a running shot pulse wave with one of my storms. Guys, bad idea. Because, oh great, here's that 20 defense on Captain Marvel.
You can look at the backs of cards now, you know.
Yes, I know that, and I forgot that was the effect of it. Like, I knew it was something that would put her on the 20 defense. I thought it was killing her for some reason. It wasn't that, spoiler alert. But I did have a wounded token on it, so I did make an attempt with the Wendigos, which gave him immediate target to waste some actions on, in my opinion. Which, forgetting how Thanos works, he did with just Thanos. Was I having a moment there? Luckily for me, once Captain Marvel was back to normal, it was just a matter of follow-up Jean Grey running shot Psychic Blast with extra perplex on the attack to just finish off the dial that was left on the Captain Marvel, because a 4 damage pulse wave is a really good start. Follow up with some big Psychic Blast and you're done with the dial. And then it was just a matter of getting the Thanos, who is just... It was just a slow pick-off with another Storm call-in and another Jean Grey call-in to just wrap it all up in that case. It was one of those teams that's like, everything I was doing was wrong, and I wanted to know this. We went to third round. Third round was up against Emily, friend of the channel. No, third round was against Mike. It was against Mike, right. Now, Mike's team was doing very similar things to me, because both of us have a main force guy who we want to do a lot of calling in. In my case, it was Undertaker. In his case, it was a Prime Spider-Woman. We both had a Tri-Sentinel, both had a Mystical Theme team. Both of us had Alex Wilder, but Mike had Mojo and only one Wendigo. So like he had a 6-figure team, I had a 7-figure team. We both wanted the underground map. I think Mike won the map roll on this, so he got the lead on that one. And Mike, I actually figured it out. I didn't kill your Sheriff Strange. I killed your Tri-Sentinel and your Wendigo.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. Sheriff Strange got to his last click, and
and I couldn't finish it. Couldn't finish the job. But yeah, this was a matter of both teams doing the exact same thing, but only one of them doing it. So, and that's the case. It's like when two teams that do almost like the mirror match. Mirror match is probably the closest thing that comes to dice in a game ever. And both of our teams are doing very similar things. With Mike doing having a few more tricks, like using the Mojo. Mike probably had more board tokens than he actually kept track of. He only used the 2 but I was like, I'm pretty sure I've missed more attacks this game. Yeah. But there were a couple situations where I kind of used as many of the tricks as I had. Billy Batson, this was the first game Billy Batson came into play. And I'm talking about his beginning of the turn effect. No free actions for you. But I think the only chance I had of getting any kind of a noticeable point gain would have been some proper perplexing when I attempted to tombstone his Mojo.
Didn't
fly anyway.
He tried to tombstone Mojo.
He normally chokes lambs against larger opponents anyway.
Yeah, that's fair, which is probably why I whiffed with the 3. I think one of my biggest Hail Marys was because we both have Share of Strange, we have the double power action with our Collins, in which we caught like turn 2. It was like, oh wait, you can't call anything in, stop.
Yeah.
But I end up pushing Alex Wilder to call in Magneto at one point. I think that was like my biggest Hail Mary, and that even didn't go so well. So I think that's 2 board tokens you missed. Long and the short of it is, it was a great game, and it was just a matter of sometimes you do everything you can and it just doesn't happen, and I just had to accept the loss on that one. I scored a few points, killed some bigger targets that were smaller points, but I did have good first 2 rounds, and a lot of the games weren't going to a lot of points. So I felt like where I was point-wise was pretty safe. But a 3-1 was in for sure, and I'd rather have that. Which, my hopes of that almost dropped out of my throat because I was up against Emily next. Guess what Emily was playing, guys? That's right,
I don't
the
have to
Canadian
guess.
Goose. That's right, the Vulture. Ooh. But this time I didn't have a team that immediately died to the Vulture. And this time I brought some tricks. And specifically, what I did on turn 1, I won map roll. I brought the game to the Necropolis. And what I had to do was I perplexed up the movement on my Undertaker to move 10 squares forward. And then I'm 10 squares, and that's on the grand entrance. So now I call in Jean Grey. Emily has 3 objects. She's got the Blood Axe, she's got the Venom Symbiote, and she's got the Ock Arms. Now, unfortunately, my choice of Necropolis was not ideal for the outright killing the most threatening objects that she has. But I was still able to kill the Symbiote and the Ock Arms because the Symbiote is not indestructible. So I running shot, used a range action to destroy the Symbiote, then the TK into nowhere with the Doc Ock Arms, and then my Undertaker sidestep backwards to poof my Jean Grey. I picked up my exospecs along the way so that the next turn I was ready to arm those. Basically, I was in that turn where I could go, now I can play HeroClix.
It's the usual first turn against a Vulture team.
Yeah, where it's just like, all right, now I can play, because I have not been playing teams with the Vulture in mind. I have to, full disclosure, any team that I have played before this particular tournament, the Vulture was just going to walk all over, and I accepted my fate on that one. But in this particular instance, I was a little bit more ready, a little bit more prepped, and I did the extra work. Emily had to, of course, move forward, play a little bit more aggressively, but not as in the same manner. I was able to pop Wesley before she decided before she lined up a TK with her Vulture to actually get all my Colossals. But she was stuck in a situation. Her goal after killing the Colossals was to try to do some damage and knock back my Doctor Strange. And thank the Lord, I got a Super Sense in my life. So I Super Sensed my way into safety on that one. I followed that up with a call-in of a Beast, because she used a sidestep to get away from get into like a little bit more safety. I called in Beast and put as many perplexes as I could to make sure I could kill it. So the goal here was I had 2 outwits from the Leslie Evans that she gives me with her Groot. Her Vulture team includes a Groot. New addition is to Wesley Crusher. She has 2 Big Tonys. She has an Unseen. I didn't go into deep description of the team, but there's a lot of Perplex, there's a Lockjaw, there's an Unseen, there's a lot of things that make Vulture go boom. And so because I had the Leslie, because I had the Undertaker, I was able to outwit charge, outwit toughness, and then follow that up with a 5 damage single target quake into a wall with my Beast, which 5 damage plus the 1 from the knockback kills the Vulture. So I'm out of the Vulture danger zone. Unfortunately, what? Sorry.
But you're losing.
I
Two when it goes in the Tri-Sentinel means that she got the points.
Well, she had 60, and I've got now 64 because I've killed the 2 objects.
But didn't you call in to?
Yeah, so sorry, she's got 63.
Okay.
She's got 63 because it's she's got 63.
And Jean earlier, so 66.
Yeah, I got 64. Yeah. So either way, and I was also there. Yeah. So I was still behind, but she sent Groot to go try to kill my my beast, which she did. Ugh, things are going bad for points. Couldn't get that Super Sense roll, could I? I ended up killing the beast with an attack from, I believe it was the Undertaker. No, it wasn't the Undertaker. It was somebody else. It might have actually been Doctor Strange. I can't remember. I do remember killing the Groot.
Yep.
And then on that same turn, I killed the Groot, I also used a spin ring to move the Walking Wood 1 square away after Billy Batsoning it. No free actions. You're now 1 square away. You can't sidestep. Get out of my face.
Perfect.
Emily's got me right there. I call in Jean, then Cyclops and Beast. She was ahead. But it was the next move where the Undertaker calls in Storm to running shot pulse wave single target on the Unseen. Mm-hmm. And that was 65 points just right there to score. And that, I think that was like the big over the hump where it's like, okay, so now she's got to come in with Groot and Walking Woods. And when we got into the final battle, I was starting to do what I like to do with the Undertaker, which is choose or use submission hold, choose poison, use that. And I was starting to get 2 tokens for free off of the Lockjaw. And I could continue to do that while eventually throwing in an attack and slowly work my way through Lockjaw. But when I started working my way through Lockjaw, time was called, and I was like, okay, that was one hell of a game. And we hugged each other, and that was it. I squeaked it. It was like 170 to 120 something was the final score on the game. So it was a tight game, and I was keeping track of score on a piece of paper next to it. So, which thank God we can take notes in this game now. So we will go to the semifinals. I'm up against Jared, and Jared's team is the Prime Q, the Skyscraper Wonder Woman, Ultra Chase Thanos at 160. Kyle, what did I say?
Jarrett.
My bad. Sorry. So yeah, Skyscraper Wonder Woman, Lockjaw, Prime Q, and Ultra Chase Thanos at 160 points. And my dice did the game against Mike thing. I had a lot of really good moves and a lot of really close calls that almost had Thanos, but there was one point where I think I overstretched with what I had available to me. So I was able to kill the Skyscraper Woman. Wonder Woman blew her out of the water with a running shot from Magneto. I have a point lead now. He's able to TK up with his Thanos, get a bit of a point lead back by killing my Tri-Sentinel. All right, I'm behind. I've got to kill Thanos just to make sure I can win this somehow. So I follow that up with a call-in on the Storm with a Pulse Wave. Include the Pulse Wave and the knockback damage to do 5 damage to Thanos. And I look at this situation and I say to myself, now is a good time to try the Wendigo attacks. The Mystic's damage will be nullified by the Steel Energy if I can get the damage off. If I hit the attacks. So both Wendigos miss their attacks, and then because Thanos does what Thanos does, he goes pew pew to both my Wendigos, because there's 2 characters with the same name on the board, and then it's just a matter of me trying call in after attack after action after whatever to try to get and he's got dice manipulation all over my face, and I know Thanos is the only way I can win this game at this point. And as I was lining up the final attack, my final attempt at killing the Thanos, I had Thanos down to a point where a 5 damage shot from, even including invulnerable from a Storm, could break it. I was locking down Lockjaw's ability to pick powers by simply Billy Batsoning it and keeping Billy close to him, and not allowing any free actions as a result, so he can't choose a new power. And I put everything, got ready, lined it up, and just as I was about to start to call in, time was called, and I threw my dice. So I was like, ah! Ah! And let out a mighty swear. And yeah, so I couldn't get that game. I couldn't finish it. And I think, like, in hindsight, I overstretched with the Wendigos, which is a massive misplay on my part. And he was able to just capitalize on it and just get that point lead and keep me behind the entire game. And because, when you can't hit, you can't score, And the thing that hurts the most is, like, I was a +3 on a dice roll, and I would not have put us on the map that we were on. And, like, in a case of an underground, I would have had a chance, but, you got to play with the map that you got. Losing the Tri-Sentinel was a massive loss to me. And there's so much that just didn't work out for me in this game. I got to kind of just say, I made the biggest mistake, and I also couldn't capitalize with the dice. Like, everything just went wrong for me, but I'm happy with a 4th place coming out of the wilderness from nowhere, and having not played much in the last little bit. So, great old time. Awesome time playing against all my opponents. Dave, you're a good sport. Stan, I love playing against you. Mike, I hate you. Emily, I love playing against you. Kyle, I'll get you next time. I'll get you next time, Gadget. All right, Mike,
good stuff.
Same tournament. Give us a story.
Yeah, quick shout out to Comic Book Addiction. We love to play a Comic Book Edition. Again, I wish it wasn't in Whitby. I wish it was closer to my home, but it's actually surprisingly easy to get to. We all traveled out there on the GO train and a quick bus, and it was a fun little trip there with my Clicks family. I love the venue. I love the space, and I love the energy of the people there. So thank you again to Michael and Jane and Ryan for running the event. It was awesome. So as everybody knows who's been watching the show, I'm completely obsessed with this Mojo figure, and I've just been building around Mojo and trying to make Mojo into something. So in cycling through all the keywords and looking at the game as a whole, we know support powers are important. It is a dice game, so Prob and Perplex are probably, I think, the 2 most important powers. I'd even put them ahead of Outwit because it is a dice rolling game and it's a number manipulating game. So re-rolling and hedging your numbers are extremely powerful. So I was trying to come up with having those things on a generic keyworded team because of the fact that Mojo's keywords really are all generic ones. Mystical seemed like a good one. Alex Wilder's a good fill-in piece because he can pick those stuff. So in this process is how I ended up stumbling across Prime Spider-Woman, because she has the free action where she can pick any power that's not already showing on her dial. And she has all those support powers. She starts with Shape Change, which is great defensively, but she could choose Perplex, Prob, or Outwit then, which basically complements Alex Wilder, so that whatever Alex Wilder doesn't have, that my opponent says basically that they can't use, I can always pick that with Spider-Woman, provided I'm top click. It becomes more complex when you're farther down, but ultimately, if she's got it on the dial somewhere, she's going to be able to use it. So the team ultimately is Spider-Woman, Mojo at 75, Sheriff Strange at 50, Tri-Sentinel at 30, Alex Wilder at 25, and then a Wendigo at 15. And then I managed to throw the Nightbringer ring on, much like how Tom mentioned with Witch Queen. I find Nightbringer to be a really great, cheap, almost like protected Outwit, cheap version of it, right? Because if you can't see through stealth to see the person in the first place, you can't use Outwit on them. Until the current set had come out, really Unseen was the only threat to outwitting you through stealth that we were seeing in the meta. In most cases, people didn't have Outwit and were able to see through stealth. Of course, that's going to change now. Everybody's got espionage. Oh my God. Anyway, so that's why I have the Nightbringer ring on there, is to give to Spider-Woman. It allows her to be more aggressive, to be able to be farther out, because she can always drop the smoke under herself and protect herself, and give herself that sort of lightweight protection from Outwit. And then I went with 5 ID cards. I played the Wolverine wanted poster. I played both the faculty and the student Cyclops, and then the 2 student Iceman and Jean Grey. So much like Jason already mentioned, it's really a team that's about calling in things. I already have 3 people off the bat who can call in everything off my sideline, which is Mojo, Spider-Woman, almost everybody. Mojo and Spider-Woman can call in everybody. And then Sheriff Strange can call in everybody but Jean or the Chase Iceman. I do also have the Colossal Iceman as an option for that ID. So there are times where I can have my most of my team call in my sideboard. So that's another benefit to the build. Anyway, And then again, all the manipulating of support powers and manipulating numbers and, boosting your attacks and boosting your call-ins ranges and all that fun stuff with Perplexes. So my first round was against Patrick Chow. I got to be honest, I don't understand why he played the team that he played. He didn't play with any ID cards at all. He didn't play with any Colossal Retaliators at all. Actually, no, sorry. He did have one ID card. Oh, no, wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. That's why. I knew he didn't have one. I'm like, he didn't have any of those in there. Yeah, so it was really odd in that respect. He did have trouble alerts on the sideline, and he filled in a lot of slots with gems because he wanted to be able to, I guess, pick whichever gem he wanted for the one person that he had. His team was basically the con Kyle Rayner at 170 points, Astronomer at 75 with Bearer of the Infinity Gem, and then Gardner at 45. So it's a cosmic team with +3. And then he had also a Venom symbiote on there, which he ends up equipping onto Kyle, which I was confused by because Kyle starts with shape change, but I think he wanted it more for the plasticity and to be able to auto breakaway. Anyway, I won map. I got a +6 against his +3. I won map. I picked the Underground, of course, because I've got a Tri-Sentinel. I've got so much shifting and maneuverability with Mojo and Spider-Woman. One of the things that makes them great is if my opponent sidesteps anywhere, Mojo gets to move 2 on my turn. So I can, in essence, I get a lot of repositioning that happens on my opponent's first turn, especially when I go first. So I can go first, make myself in a great place, and then as my opponent starts sidestepping and picking up objects, all of a sudden I start moving Mojo up the map. He can carry somebody else with him, flyers with him if they're smaller, like Spider-Woman. So there's a lot of repositioning potential early on with the team, which allows me to really take advantage of calling in stuff and having a reach. In most games, I can reach people's starting area on my second turn. So it allows me to be aggressive. And with Cyclops call-ins, I can shoot through at least one square of blocking terrain, so the map doesn't prevent me from doing that as much, again, with the repositioning. So I pick map. I have all the control. I don't think he really understood what my team could do. Right away, on my second turn, I call out a Cyclops. I shoot through a square of blocking terrain. I murder the Gardener with 1 hit. Pretty straightforward. Later on, I tried to take out the Astronomer, but I couldn't get prob on the call-in, and I knew, I kept saying, man, I got to find a way to get prob on this attack. And sure enough, I missed it. Or I hit the first time, and his Astronomer could actually see to make me re-roll it. I re-rolled and I missed. I had no way to re-roll it. But I managed to take out that Astronomer later with a nice combination of I called out an Iceman at one point in time. I did a Pulse Wave to do a little bit of damage to Astronomer. This got a wounded token on him, allowing the Wendigo to do his thing. He moved forward, made an attack with Exploit Weakness, sidestepped, made another attack with Exploit Weakness. Pretty much everything went exactly how I wanted it to. I murdered Astronomer. I got Kyle Rayner all the way down to his last click. Kyle managed to run to the back corner. He made 1 regen roll, but only rolled and healed 1. So he only hopped off the starting click 1. And he was in the back corner next to an L shape of blocking. My Tri-Sentinel had enough movement that I was able, or was going to be able, to walk far enough forward, get through one of the squares of blocking and out again, destroying it, dealing 1 damage to put him back on the stop click, and then activate Colossal Retile, the end effect, blowing up the rest of the blocking. There was another square next to him. That would have finished off Kyle. Literally, as I was about to say the words that I was doing that, that's when they called time. So I didn't get to finish off Kyle, but I took all the rest of the points in that game. It was pretty easy having 1 map. I had all the control in that situation. I mean, Astronomer is tough, but he doesn't see through blocking. Thank goodness for that. My second round game was against the patron you mentioned earlier, David Crichton. So we already know what his team is. It's a whole bunch of wrestlers. I won map again. I picked the hedge maze this time because I'm way less worried about ranges from his wrestling team. So I can kind of afford to have an outdoor map. Also, I love the hedge maze way more for my team because with Spider-Woman being a flyer and having sidestep, she can sidestep over a hedge, and Mojo being giant, he already sees over the hedge. So I can come up with these crazy paths where all of a sudden I sidestep over a hedge. Mojo TKs her straight up a line, 6 squares. She does a call in. That call in runs another, like if it's Cyclops, he runs another 4 squares and then shoots an additional 8 through a thing of blocking. So there's so much crazy positioning that happens. I love the hedge maze with this team. So early on, much like you mentioned, get a click of damage on Andre makes him so much softer. Well, good old Tri-Sentinel hedge maze map. So pretty much I move Tri-Sentinel out, make him walk through a square near him. I ping him for 1. I do in this case, I had to just do the Colossal Retail after effect to blow up all the blocking in the middle of the map, which did damage to Prez Rickard and did damage to Andre. I did a Wolverine call-in to get rid of Prez Rickard because I just didn't want any leadership or perplex. I didn't want the defend that was there. And then I just did a whole lot of this kind of passive damage, sidestepping and locking things down. I got his whole team locked down in the middle of the map. I brought everybody forward next to Mojo, and then it just became this constant sidestep-a-thon, dropping a person in front of somebody and taking them out. My dice were hot. He just really couldn't do much in it. Eventually, he managed to take out my Tri-Sentinel. Pretty sure he also managed to take out the Wendigo, and then there was a bunch of ID cards. So he ended up taking about 100 points from me, and I wiped out his team. My third round game, you've pretty much already heard about, was my game with Mr. Collins. I would say really the most important factors, winning map wasn't so important for the winning map so much as it was for going first. Again, my team really, really benefits from going first because I can get the ring on Spider-Woman, but I don't have to really move anybody else out. And then when my opponent goes, often they sidestep, and all of a sudden my Mojo comes flying out. And when I do my turn 2, good old Mojo and Spider-Woman are halfway up the map. Mr. Collins didn't fall for that mistake. He was very smart about his use of sidestep, and in fact, took advantage of a good nimble at one point in time to make sure. I would say he's the only person on the day who probably kept Mojo to almost his starting area at the beginning of my second turn. I think I was actually only out maybe 2 sidesteps or 1 sidestep at that point. So that was very smart. But again, with his sidestep, Spider-Woman's sidestep, and TK, I just have so much swing for Collins. So I did exactly what I knew I needed to do. I put everything into calling out a Cyclops to kill the Tri-Sentinel with 1 shot, because that's the thing I'm most afraid of on the underground map. And that put me up on those points early. And then, as Jason mentioned, it was this sort of a little bit of a back and forth in positioning. His dice weren't really doing what he wanted. My dice were doing everything that I wanted. And I took a fair amount of points and won that game. My last game was against Jay Solomon. We've heard what we almost heard what Jay's team was, because his team, it was slightly different.
Yeah, he didn't have the WWE ring.
No, which in hindsight, he said he wished he had.
Yeah.
It's funny because he was talking to on the way home from our tournament about the fact that it didn't really seem like it added much to his team in the experiences he had that day. So who knows?
Well, he seemed to feel like after our game that it might have benefited him. But in our matchup, I won map, surprisingly, even though he has a +8 cosmic team. I have +6. My dice were still just rolling really hot. Even initiative rolls were rolling hot. So I won map, and I went for the underground because, again, it makes sense. He's got unseen. The best defense against Unseen is walls and blocking. The Underground's got the most amount of walls and blocking you're going to get. I don't want to be outside because he can, ping my stuff at range and whatever. I need as much protection as possible. So I picked that map. He knows exactly what I want to do early on, which is I always go for Groot because I want to get rid of that leadership early on. People don't realize, leadership is huge when you're playing a game of calling things in, So often we use 4 actions in these 3 action games because we do, a movement to get a support piece, a movement to get a support piece. Well, now this guy calls in somebody. Well, you need leadership for that forced action. Sometimes you get the leadership off of your call in, but that's not always the case. So that's why Groot's so popular, and that's why I go for Groot. I'm pretty sure in this situation I did get him early on. I got some points early on. Jay's is a really tough player. Like he doesn't make those kind of mistakes. There was all this very difficult positioning. It went back and forth, but then really I would say the key moment in that game was I had, instead of doing a call-in, I had Spider-Woman was still top click. She has charge. I boosted her values. I gave her a 4 damage, and I picked Precision Strike, and I had her charge on Unseen. I hit. Before he rolled Super Senses, he decided to have me re-roll. He probbed my roll, and I crit hit. So I one-shot take out Unseen, and honestly, that was huge. And I think before that moment, I'd managed to take out Q already. I have to make a note about that fact that I have to actually thank Jay for teaching me how to kill Q, because Jay has played Q a bunch of times in practice, and I've learned all the nuances to him. And one of the most important things I've learned about how to kill Q is don't attack him within his range. Attack him 9 or more squares away. Like, be smart. Hedge your bets. He has way too many ways of messing up your roll. Shoot him from 9 or more away. Cyclops from 9 or more away can kill Q way easier than you realize. There's still chances that it's going to fail, but more often than not, I have actually managed to be successful with that by remembering, don't shoot him within 8 squares. It's stupid. Don't do it. So anyway, things really went my way. I had really hot dice, and yeah, so I managed to go undefeated. I'm trying to think of what I took like a good 113 points in that game. So it was tight, but it was a reasonable win. Then we go to the top 4. And I had to play Jay again.
I hate those ones.
Right? Well, we both felt that way because it was such a tight game, back and forth, and like it really felt like, oh man, I don't want to have to go through that again right away. It would have been nicer to face in the top 2, but we had to face each other right away. This time he wins map, and that's really not good for me. He picks, what's the name of it again? This is Chomp Swamp.
Yeah, Mr. Chomp's Swamp.
Yeah, so that's the map he picks because there's only one big chunk of blocking in the middle. It's pretty wide open. I don't have anywhere to hide. And what's even worse is that he gets to go first. So, of course, he gets Unseen out there. Unseen calls out a Jean Grey, who basically gets rid of my Nightbringer ring, poofs off the map, Unseen's in hindering, the rest of his team's still in his starting area, so I can't really do anything. Unfortunately, because I have won maps so much during the day, I forgot that I didn't go first in this game and proceeded to attempt to attack his Q in his starting area. So I moved my team out, and I use Perplexes, and I call out a Cyclops, and as I go to running shot on Q, he's like, well, first turn immunity, right? And I'm like, damn it! So I decide to shoot at a Flora, because one of the Floras had moved out, and I can't even hit the Flora. So now I'm like, well, that's not good. I managed to poof the Cyclops, but it's like I'm concerned because I've now done a lot of moving and repositioning to epically fail. Thankfully, Jay's dice weren't solid enough to allow him to completely capitalize on that. He managed to get rid of the Actually, no, he didn't get rid of the Trisonar right away. He started to go after Sheriff Strange, but I managed to get the positioning just right that he kind of couldn't get in there. And then it became this kind of slightly slowed down version of things for a while, where we were all around the middle part of the map. He's taking advantage of the hindering. I'm repositioning and trying to do call-ins. And then, oh man. Yeah, and then eventually he moved Q forward enough that I was able to get an attack off with a Wolverine flurry that managed. No, I missed with both of the Wolverine flurries. I did manage to make him poof off the map. And then I had Spider-Woman come in. She went after Q, took out Q. She survived long enough to then take out Unseen. But once again, I am my own worst enemy, and like we mentioned about keeping track of points is a really good idea. I somehow thought I was way behind, so I kept playing aggressive and trying to get points. And I threw there was barely any time left. I threw Spider-Man way up there. I even had a Colossal Retaliate with Tri-Sentinel. I missed that Colossal Retaliate. I send a Spider-Woman forward. She epically fails. She gets killed by his Wolverine call-in and a Flora Colossus. I give up 80 points with like 5 minutes left in the game, and I'm thinking, well, that's it. I just lost.
Your camera stole that, Mike.
Uh-oh. I have to do the thing, right?
Yeah,
wait.
the thing.
Do this thing, and then this thing.
Turn it off and on again.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, like literally 5 minutes left of the game. It's like, here, Jay, here's 80 points. And I'm thinking, well, that's it. I just lost. Like he's winning by like 150. And I've got like, I don't know what, like 60 points. What was I thinking? So I'm still trying now to get these points. Wendigo moves all the way up the map. He charges in. He crit misses. But he wasn't on his last click, thankfully. So he didn't actually die. And then they call time. And I'm just like, oh man, what was wrong with me at the end there? And then we added up the points, and I won by 15 points.
Jeepers.
So if that Wendigo hadn't been up a click and had actually died, we would have been tied at the end of that game, and we would have had to roll off. So, holy cow, what a game.
So just a quick thing, Jay has a couple corrections.
I'm sure.
The Flora on turn 1, so you're up 13-8.
I did get the floor. I thought I missed it.
And then he says he KO'd the Sheriff Strange with a call-in that would take Mystics, and then he Flora retaliated on it both times.
Yes. Okay. That was it. It was the Mystic Flora Retaliate that came up afterwards. I thought you got Sheriff Strange. Yeah. Man, that was a hard match. So, final match, I played Kyle. And I got to say, the motto of our show, again, it really is key. Practice makes your team better. And you know what? Practice, it's not just the practicing your team and learning how to play your team. It's learning how to play against other things. Just like I said in my game with Jay, playing against Q, I know how to deal with him. Kyle's got Q on his team. I know how to deal with Q now. I know what I don't want to let this Q do. I know how far I want to stay away from him. I know how to deal with him. Kyle and I also had a practice game with this team, and I won map in that game. I won map in this game. So I picked the same map I did then, which is the hedge maze. I have all the control in this type of matchup. It's not good for Ultra Chase Thanos to be on the hedge maze. He's super slow. He doesn't have the advantage of the TK lines from Lockjaw. I kill Skyscraper Wonder Woman immediately. Like literally my turn 2, I kill her immediately with Cyclops because I know her whole job is she's going to walk through some blocking and make some clear lines to let him throw Thanos around. He moves up slowly because he's trying to get to into a position to be able to attack. Every time I discount, okay, I know that Thanos can go exactly this far with an attack with perplexes and whatever, and keep my Tri-Sentinel and my Wendigo exactly far enough away from that. He can't see anybody else because of Mojo's special power, which basically is trait, where you've got to basically be within 4 to go after him. And the rest of my team is regular size, so they're all hiding by the hedge maze. And it's the whole, call out things to murder things. Now, what was funny was on my 3rd turn, he'd actually moved Q up to the other side of this wall. I call out Cyclops. I've got perplexes. I've got probs. I have him run out. I shoot. I hit. I look at Kyle and I go, well, the only way you'll survive is if you roll a 6 on super senses. And he rolls a 6 on super senses.
It happens.
And I'm like, Ugh! But then what's funny is I realize the next turn, I never even needed to make that attack because he was standing next to a wall. My Tri-Sentinel had more than enough movement to get there. So, sure enough, on my 3rd turn, Tri-Sentinel, on my 2nd turn, I'd moved Tri-Sentinel out, blew up a whole bunch of stuff in the middle, killed the skeets, did some damage somewhere else, and then managed to go through another square to finish off the queue with the 1 passive damage. Man, that Tri-Sentinel is broken. The whole after Colossal Retail without Colossal Retailing thing, I exploited it all day. It's broken, and it's a great way to get rid of a queue. Don't ever put Q next to square blocking terrain if you don't want him to just die like in the most inconvenient way. So pretty much it came down to just his he had Lockjaw and his Thanos, of course, because Lockjaw's tough to deal with. He was doing some good things with Lockjaw. He was popping out, making some hits. He managed to do a little bit of damage to Mojo. But I was really just slowly inching my way up the map to get into a position and isolate Thanos. All of a sudden, I saw that my time was there. He was double token with Thanos. I sidestepped into a position with a jacked up Spider-Woman who picked Pulse Wave. Damn stupid camera. It's my home internet here. So yeah, I sidestep into a position with a nice juiced up Spider-Woman with Prob in line. She picks Pulse Wave. She single target Pulse Waves Thanos. I roll doubles. I knock him back into a wall. His next turn, he clears. My next turn, I pick Pulse Wave again. I do the exact same thing again, and I finish off Thanos. So now it's just Lockjaw left. And I'm just waiting for him to end up on click 6 because with the Iceman call in and the fact that I can choose Incap from Spider-Woman, I can double Incap him in a turn. But instead, he's right next to all my guys. So I have Mojo hit him. Then Mojo does a free attack and hits him. Then Sheriff Strange calls out somebody who hits him. And then Alex Wilder says, hey, I'm going to try and hit Lockjaw, and hits him. So I do take off 4 clicks off of him in 1 turn. The following turn, he actually ends up on click 6 with a token. I just have a Spider-Woman choose Incap. She sidesteps, she Incaps Lockjaw, finishes him off. And that was it. Again, if I hadn't have played against that team the first time, I might have had more trouble, but I knew everything that it could and couldn't do, and just isolated its strength and, just ripped through it. I'm still stunned. I'm really happy with this team because I was obsessed with Mojo and I really wanted it to work. And in all my practice games, it really was not working anywhere as well as I thought it would. But I guess that was more attributed to pretty bad dice because, yesterday everything fired on all cylinders. So, qualify for nationals, which is awesome. That takes a huge weight off my back.
Awesome. So congrats to the both of you, winning in 2 very different locales, and it's awesome, guys. Now it's my turn, but geez.
Witch Queen Challenge, baby.
Yeah, Witch Queen Challenge.
It's I'm only allowed to do it there.
I know. Just saying. We'll go back.
Yeah. So that's
you playing on Sunday?
What's that?
You gonna play on Sunday?
I'm playing this Sunday. It is sealed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking very much forward to it.
I'll be there.
Amber's even coming with me on this one. We're going to be in town anyway, so we figured, hey, let's do this WKO thing. We had plans in Toronto. We booked a hotel. Funny fact, we haven't booked a hotel in the past, since our honeymoon that hasn't involved HeroClix. And she started to be like, oh, it's going to be nice to book a hotel to not deal with HeroClix. Like, Amber, the reason we're booking a hotel is so we can stay in town and do HeroClix.
I'm excited because if the bad dice thing turned around and I had great dice this weekend, I'm hoping my pulling almost nothing but rares in pre-release play will turn into gold at this sealed WKO. Not that it matters anymore because...
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't you leave some for the rest of us?
Well, I just want the good figures. I don't care about winning.
I don't even need the chase. There's 2 uncommons that I know I can do fairly well with.
I'm okay with the Ultron curse, where you pull the Ultron chase, but you can't roll higher than a 3, so you still miss anyway.
Yeah,
I'm okay with
I
that.
have yet to see an Ultron hit an attack. It is ridiculous. It's like, I got a 14 attack. I'm not going to... Oh, you will.
That's it.
All right. That said, you guys have a whole bunch of new toys to work with from these WKOs. How about we spend a little time talking about them?
Sure, let's burn.
Segue our way right into that. Nice and smooth. So we're going to talk today about the WKO pricing, and then we're going to go to questions after that because it's been an exhausting weekend and we want to take it easy. And we have some more to discuss in regards to other things surrounding WKO, but we need to go to this weekends to be sure about something we're going to discuss next week. Yes, I know. Non-spoiler, spoiler, non-information. Okay, So first we're going to start with the grand prize, which both of you now have, Deadpool the Duck. He's a team player for team ability, so that means he's a wild card. 6 range with 2 targets, 85 points. He's got the Deadpool core, Weapon X, Animal, and Assassin keywords. He's got what you see is it's not what you see is what you get. He's got a special defense in his last 2 powers. He's tiny. He's aquatic. His trait, piling up continuity tokens, probability control. Deadpool the Duck has protected opposing probability control. When Deadpool the Duck makes an attack, after resolutions, give him a continuity token, a maximum of 2. Once per turn during an attack, if he has line of fire to the attacker, you may remove a continuity token to change the result of a d6 roll, including 1 die of an attack roll, to a 2 or a 5. His special defense on his last 2 clicks is regeneration. You may remove a continuity token to change the result of this d6 roll for regeneration to a 5. All right, Tom, what are your thoughts on Deadpool the Duck?
I mean, he's Deadpool the Duck, so automatically that's a pretty cool. He gets cool points right off the bat because that's hilarious. And I like the fact that they've gone deep on that, like they did with Lockjaw and the Infinity Gauntlet before. I like the fact that they got these cool animal grand prizes, so that's slick. A tiny figure that is a wild card with Perplex and Prob. Is a pretty nice little suitcase to take around with just about any figure. So even notwithstanding what he's doing, the fact that he's giving Perplex and Prob to your team, along with potentially wildcard something valuable, that's good. I like his dice replacement effect, and obviously, if you can pull it off, that's an incredible dice replacement to be able to control it being a 2 or a 5, because those aren't the best case scenarios possible, but they're both really good, and you take the randomness away from it. But he's got to be making attacks before that can happen. His swing on its own is not that fantastic. But at least there is something to be said for the fact that he's tiny, so he's going to be +1 defense from range. If he's in water, he's another +1 defense from range, and if he flexes up his defense, he's another 1 up. So he's not as easy to shoot as he seems, and Super Senses is a great way of trying to stay alive. And his dice replacement is cool, but maybe not quite as powerful as you might think, since he's got to be making attacks before he can really make the full usage of it. Still, I mean, he's a really cool figure, and I certainly think that he's useful, if not broken.
All right, Mike, anything you want to add?
I'm excited to play him with King Shark before King Shark retires, because I think they're good buddies. He can be carried by King Shark, and they can splash around in the water together, and it'll be lots of fun. They'll be best friends.
Splish splash, bitch.
I'm taking a bath.
All right, yeah. I just wish I had one.
Yeah.
All right.
Fair enough.
Next up, we have Quicksilver, also a team player. He's the wild card. 75 points. Avengers Brotherhood Brotherhood of Mutants, Inhumans, X Factor, X-Men, and Speedster keywords. He's got a special movement power. Faster, better, more arrogant, take your pick. Hypersonic speed. When Quicksilver's attacks deal a maximum of 3 damage. When Quicksilver uses hypersonic speed and makes a close attack after the attack resolves, before moving again, he may make a close attack targeting a character he hasn't attacked this action. And he's got a special damage power tree has on everything except his first click, Perplex. When Quicksilver uses it to target another friendly character that shares a keyword, instead roll 3d6 and the resulting combat values are modified +1 until your next turn for each result. And then there's if you roll a 1, you get range, 2 speed, 3 attack, 4 defense, 5 damage, 6 you get to choose. If he rolls 3 6s this way, remove all action tokens from him and the target character and heal them each 3 clicks. So what do you think of this one, Mike?
I like him. I think it's gonna be fun. I mean, he's got 5 named keywords, so that already makes me excited. I'm so many building possibilities. I mean, clearly with X-Men and Avengers, you could definitely come up with lots of solid and competitive teams with those keywords. But he's interesting. He's fun. Solid values. He does get tripped up by hindering terrain, so it is not like we started to see for a while there. A lot of hypersonic guys who were like cutting through the hindering. This is a Quicksilver who trips over a bush.
Amber hates that Quicksilver can't get through bushes.
Right?
It's like her most infuriating fact.
But at the same time,
he's a wild card. Play Superman ally.
But it feels so right at the same time, because there's been so many times in the comics I've seen Pietro just like wipe out because he's tripped over something innocuous and he's pissed about it. So that kind of feels right.
My favorite moment of that was, I don't know if you ever read the Executioner song, but there's a point where X Factor is fighting X Force. He's running and Shatterstar just grabs his foot. So the panel is...
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm saying. Like, it's happened numerous times to Quicksilver. So I think that's actually appropriate. He doesn't have hindering, ignores hindering. The Perplex power is pretty cool. I guess if you really wanted to be a jerk and you put him on a team with some die manipulating, could you replace those dies? Does that count as a die roll you could replace?
What's Q? I don't know what Q actually does as far as replacing dice. Does he say specific? No,
I mean,
it's during an attack, isn't it?
Yeah, Q can only do super senses and attacks.
Yeah.
Like, if you could play him in Golden with Mixie, there's nothing that says that it can't be re-rolled. So
or
Mixie
like Golden with Golden with Raccoon, Rocket Raccoon. Remember that one?
Yeah. But certainly of the modern dice replacements, I don't think there's any that would work with this.
Okay, but still, hey man, that's a pretty cool power. I like that Perplex power. I think this is a neat take on Quicksilver. It's different than what we've seen before in terms of it's not just hypersonic and blah blah blah. The Perplex is useful, and the guy can take out a crowd, right? Run into just a whole bunch of guys in one clump and take them out. So teams that like to group together, like the Vulture team with the big Tonys, or like a Voyager team with AIM guys and Medusa guys, that's a neat trick for him to run in there and attack a bunch of them and take off. So he's neat.
Anything you want to add there, Tom?
Not really. I'm not too taken with it. I think that everything that Mike says is true, as long as we're kind of talking about a piece that's kind of fun to play and stuff. As far as a piece that has any value on a competitive HeroClix team, he just doesn't have enough. You can't perplex up his damage. That's really a shame. He doesn't have willpower, and there's no way to get it, at least on his own dial. That's a shame. He doesn't start with the cool perplex or precision strike. That's a shame. He doesn't ignore terrain. That's a shame. If you push him onto the second clear to get precision strike and the cool perplex, you lose your only defense power. That is also a shame. So there's just too many downsides to be.
This is a shame.
Yeah. His sister's the better choice.
Yeah, he feels like a good X Factor era representation of Quicksilver, and so play him in casual in that context.
Yeah, I that's the thing. I'm not. This is one of those characters I would not feel guilty about using at Dolly's, where we have a lot of new players. I'm not going to be like, look at my overpowered figure. It's just if it happens the once, it's gonna be like, well, that was stupid. But that was about it.
Yeah, you can't even perplex him. You can't even take an enhancement. So
yeah. All right. Next up, his sister Scarlet Witch. She's got Mystics and team players. There's a lot of wild cards in these prize kits.
And almost all of them.
Yeah. 5 range, 75 points. Avengers, Brotherhood of Mutants, Lady Liberators, X-Men, mystical keywords. She got a special defense power in her first 3 clicks, My Scarlet Senses. Energy shield deflection, super senses, but succeeds on a 4 to 6. Bad Luck Hexes is her special damage power in her first 3 clicks. Probability control for all characters with this power. So if you get more multiples, you're only doing this once. If an opposing character's attack roll was re-rolled or a die in it was replaced, the final result is decreased by -1. So yeah, it looks like this is that first incentive against those dice replacements. Like, we have a tool. It's still not the greatest tool. Where, you know, if they have like a 5 and they're replacing a 3, they're still, and all they needed was that to be up to a 4, they're still kind of okay. But it does kind of beg that moment where it's like, oh wait, I'm gonna be -1 if I use Q's effect, or if I prob it, I'm now actually gonna be -1 to the dice rolls. So, you know, if they came close, now it's going to be harder to come close, or, you know, if you hit on, it's going to be close. And I like that effect on the prob. That's a really strong probability control and a really cool defense power. The only downside, of course, is this is a glassy kind of figure. Like, she's got a 10 attack with Psychic Blast, which is cool. A 5 range with Running Shot, not the greatest. I mean, for 75 points, I feel like, even though we're kind of short on those lower level mystical characters with probability control, we just got Dario Adger. I'm probably more likely to use him without the Minotaur. Or, you know, I've still got Alex Wilder. Ultimately, for 75 points for a mostly strictly probability control focused character, this is not the ideal choice. But again, still a really cool figure, better than Quicksilver, in my opinion. And I think this is like one of those, again, characters I don't mind bringing to a casual tournament. I'm not going to feel bad about it. It's just really super okay good. You know, she's not whip proof or anything like that. What do you think, Tom? Anything you want to add?
Only that, you know, played with a dice replacement character can be a bit oppressive. So not just against dice replacement, but if you've got dice replacement on your team. The only thing about that, though, is that she's got her own prob, and so because I don't get the feeling that you're stacking those -1s because it's an either or, right?
Yeah.
Then you're probably using your prob against your opponent's roll anyway to get that -1. So you don't really need to play her with dice replacement, and it doesn't stack. But
is this referencing her prob when they make the reroll? I thought it was any time it was a reroll.
No, it is any time. But what
Okay.
I'm saying is that if you play her and Q together,
Yeah.
it's not like you use your Q to replace an opposing character's die and you use a probability control against them and they would get to a -2 or something. You know, anything that involves either replacement or prob will get them to the -1. But the point being that she is playable with other dice replacement characters, certainly, and there's something cool about that. I like the fact that if your opponent doesn't have Outwit, she's a real problem. And if your opponent does have Outwit, then they've got to make a bit of a Sophie's choice. ESD and super duper senses is really hard to cut through. But if you're outwitting that, you're dealing with probability control and the fact that her prob is making your attack value go down. So it's going to be frustrating to face. I still agree with you, though. It's a bit too many points for someone who's not really doing much in the way of attacking in her own right. But it's close.
All right. Anything you want to add there, Mike?
Not really. I mean, I think you nailed it. Really, it's about the points. If she was less points, she would be that much more, like, you know, fit on a team and the whole min-maxing of points. She's just put herself just outside that point range to really make that dent in the meta, I would say.
All right. Next up, we have Pixie. Pixie is Mystics and X-Men keywords. Teams. Sorry, Mystics and X-Men team abilities. So first, only non-wildcard of the characters. She's 45 points. Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. New Mutants, X-Men mystical keywords. She's got the teleportation spell as her movement power, which gives her phasing teleport and passenger 3. When Pixie carried characters that share a keyword with her, may be placed within 3 squares instead of adjacent. Special attack power. I think they see teddy bears and unicorns. Smoke cloud. Opposing characters occupying markers generated by this power can use Earthbound, Neutralized, and Battle Fury. And then special damage power on her middle 3 clicks, a mix of mutation and magic. When Pixie rolls a single d6, increase the result by +1, maximum of 6. Tom, what do you think of Pixie?
I like her a lot. I love the fact that she's Like, she's a great taxi even when she's not sharing keywords. But when she is sharing keywords, then she's even better. But I am a big fan of facing teleport passenger 3 just straight up. Nothing more fancy than that. I think that that plus she is a Mystics, which can be a double-edged sword in the world of Colossal Retaliators, but still, ultimately, it's hard to call it a bad thing. And really, when your taxi has an 18 ESD and prob, then she's being well protected and she's doing something when she gets there. So those are two big check boxes for me for a 45-point taxi. She may be one of the better ones to even break theme with. She's also, she's Steve Rogers-able to go onto an Avengers team and carry them around too. But at that point, it's a pretty fair investment of points for just a taxi. Might as well stick with Happy. All the same, the point is that I think that she's a really good little taxi, and she can certainly get onto a second click where she becomes a useful close combat attacker with the ability to increase her blades roll by 1 or increase her super senses to stay alive. She's just enough of everything to make it a nice tidy package of 45 points, and I like her.
All right, Mike, anything you want to add?
Yeah, actually, in this case,
should have mentioned Smoke Cloud too, shouldn't I? Because it's amazing.
Well, it's actually on top of all of those things. It's the wonderful point that she has Jean Grey School for Higher Learning.
That's right,
and she's only 45 points.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the perfect taxi to bring up that obnoxious Wolverine with the many stop clicks and the free healing, and actually build a Jean Grey School for Higher Learning team. I think that makes her even more exciting to me. Like, she already was a great support piece, already great on an X-Men team. Just like you said, phase teleport with multiple passengers, great. The fact that you can place them 3 squares away gives you an extra swing, especially for anybody who maybe could act after actions. That's not a required line of fire. So you could be playing on a map like the Underground. You could phase teleport into a corner, keep her protected behind a wall, and just place these people on the other side of the wall. I mean, all of that stuff is already amazing, mixed in with the fact that she could be on a theme team, allowing that stupid, almost unkillable Wolverine to be on his stupid, unkillable card. So I'm pretty excited about Pixie.
I also I should have mentioned the fact that her smoke cloud allows her to create a wall that people can't fly past, which is crazy. And Colossals can't even walk past it. It's
people
nuts.
can't push out of or push in, or can't ignore pushing damage because you can't use willpower when you have Earthbound nowadays as well.
She's great. 45 points of great.
Giving Earthbound is so dangerous now. It's actually really. I was looking at it the other day because somebody our store owner over Dolly's is getting back into the game. So what does Earthbound do? Is that not flying anymore? You know what? I have to double check. It's been a while, and then I realized no willpower and no ignore terrain. Period. So.
Well, all your combat symbols negate too, right? So don't you lose flight symbol?
No, you don't lose the combat symbols anymore.
You
keep
the symbol.
Lose
okay.
Improved targeting, improved movement, and you can't use willpower.
That's how they worded it now. Copy that.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the tire stack. It's a heavy object item. 3 points. When this object is used in a close combat attack that hits, until your next turn, a hit target modifies attack -2 and gains immobile even if this effect is lost. Mike, what do you think of the tire stack?
It's a fun little object. Why not? It's still acting as a heavy object, so it's doing that extra damage you normally would want to do if you've got super strength. And sure, why not make somebody immobile for a turn? It's a fun little idea. I picture it in my head, a stack of tires wrapped around somebody. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. Tom?
Yeah, it's cute.
They make these objects all the time. They've had the straitjacket, the adamantium. Was it the adamantium or the mystical? There's a ball and chain you can hit somebody with.
The adamantium ball and chain.
Yeah, they make these all the time. I love them. They're super cute, and people always try to make scenarios with them. It's actually kind of fun. So, yeah, cool. Now, next up, it's not listed on the HC Realms thing, so give me a second. I pulled up a picture of it. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. Thanks, Jay, for ignoring that chat that I asked you to do. All right. Here we go. Bingo. So we have the barrel. This is a picture of my thumb in the picture, so I apologize. Barrel is a light object, and when this object is used in a close attack that hits, after resolutions, this character can use Force Blast at no cost to target a hit character and double that amount of knockback. There's a lot of potential in this, just like 2-point throw in light object style thing. If you got a 298 point and you have the object space, throw barrel in, because the extra 1 damage plus the extra possible 1 or 2 damage that you could do with just a knockback alone is great. Include this with the, by God, he's got a barrel, pro wrestler style actions. There's a couple powers that you can use knockback, or there's one at least that was like doesn't care about you having charge or combat reflexes for knockback. Include that with the barrel. Make them do a barrel roll. But ultimately, it falls under the fun but last include for objects. Don't build a team around it necessarily, but 2 points is not bad. So, and anybody can use it really because it's a light object. So, what do you think, Tom?
Agreed. The light object is the thing that pushes it over the edge. Other than that, I don't know that I have a lot to add. I think that it speaks for itself. It's fun. It's decent. It's probably not anything that you're building around.
And Mike?
Yeah, pretty much nailed it on the head with that one.
All right, cool. With that said, then, we now move to the questions, where we kind of open up our hearts to those who ask us questions on Facebook and on our Patreon Discord. Speaking of our Patreon Discord, we'd like to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. We had a good old time on the Patreon Hangout last night, in spite of the fact that I was very hangry, because my chicken and waffles never arrived. It was a bad day.
Chicken and waffles.
But it was good for a laugh, and it was a good old time. And if you want to be part of the Patreon Discord or part of the Patreon Hangout, any valuation, just check us out at Married with Clicks at patreon.com/Married with Clicks. I was thinking I'm still a little hangry. That said, starting on the Facebook, and we have Austin Ryder. He has a question. Basically, I am seeing more people talk about using Victor Mancha from the new Captain America set online. He can be masterminded by multiple people. He may be able to buff out the damage. He makes a great stealth shield for Ghost Rider who can carry him despite being a flyer, and has an okay running shot to help with early positioning and sidestep to help later on. Thoughts? Tom, what do you think? What do you think of Victor Mancha?
Sorry, I was distracted by a work email that came in. What was the question?
It's about Victor Mancha. People are talking about Victor Mancha, the uncommon from Captain America, and being used in conjunction with characters like Ghost Rider, where and ultimately he's got because he's. I mean, I think he's talking about the Colossal Ghost Rider in this case, but I'm not 100% sure. The normal Ghost Rider, the new one, the Chase.
The Chase,
he's got passenger or something. But yeah, using him to mastermind, possibly kind of take that 2 damage and laugh at it.
You mean not from Ram? What does he do for the?
Well, no, the Ghost. He's trying to protect Ghost Rider.
Right.
Austin's building a lot of teams with Ghost Rider, so that's why he's focusing on Ghost Rider in this case.
Okay.
But he wants to know, like, do you think there's potential in using Victor Mancha in Constructed to take advantage of that mastermind and the fact that he could be used as a stealth body shield with the trait from the side of the Runaways?
Yeah, I do think there's potential. It's hey, stealth mastermind is awesome, and I certainly can't complain about it after it just won me the WKO. In this case, it's funny because the stealth is not on the figure that you're worried about mastermind. It's like he's stealth and he's giving mastermind, and so much the better. And he's also an enhancer. So it will be great to figure out a way to carry him. And there are a few ways of carrying flyers, but it is something where especially if you give him the Frog Yulnir or something, I can see him being kind of annoying as somebody that gets carried around, handing out enhancement and mastermind to adjacent characters, and being hard to snipe because of the stealth. I think there's absolutely potential to be had there, and his keywords are pretty good. So I think if that's what you're using him for, then by all means do. Just be aware that it can be unreliable. There's nothing is stopping somebody from knocking him back or mind controlling away the person, or mind controlling him away if they can target him, and stuff like that. It's not broken, but I think for 50 points, if that's what you want to do with it, then there's potential to build.
I've double checked. I just got the Ghost Rider, so I haven't really looked at him. And he does have Passenger 3, only to carry characters who share a keyword regardless of wing symbol. So he can carry Victor Mancha. That's why he was mentioning that one specifically.
Right.
And he ignores elevated and hindering. So yeah.
Yeah, but then again, with Frog Yulnir, anyone can. So
yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what he's going for, and yeah, because of the fact that they share the Avengers keyword, when he masterminds to him, he's going to have invulnerability, so he's not super soft in that respect. I just feel like it's 50 points you're investing in someone that you're almost kind of guaranteeing is going to die. Like I don't know. I maybe if he did something else, if he brought one more element to the table, if he like enhancement's great, but I mean that's only benefiting you on ranged attacks. It's not boosting up the damage to like Ghost Rider when he's ramming or something like that. So it's only ever going to happen once they've taken a move and they've stopped, and maybe next turn now somebody running shots up to being next to him. So I'm not sure. I understand your concept, and maybe if there was a way to keep Victor alive longer, it's just the point investment seems off to me. Yeah, I don't feel like Victor's bringing enough for the 50 points of this guy that you're sort of saying, well, I'm for sure going to let him die before I let my 70-point character die, or whoever else is around him die. I don't know. I guess that's what's throwing me off. Is it's what's the rest of the strategy of the team per se?
Yeah, I mean we're talking about 120 points of the team. There's 180 still to go. So
yeah.
And there's other options as well for like I wouldn't just I know Austin specifically is trying to get Ghost Rider to work because he's a big fan of the character. So
right,
it's going to be like me and the upcoming the Doom Storm for me until like the Fantastic Four set gives me more Doctor Doom options.
Yeah, so, it's min-maxing as always, right?
Yeah.
What is this for these amount of points? What is this character putting in the team? It's like the same reason why we were looking at that Scarlet Witch is 75 points and going, we'd love to play her, but at 75 points, it's too much of an investment. If she was 50 points, amazing. Well, that's how I look at Victor. He's 50 points, but what is he bringing other than this sort of invulnerability mastermind to everybody near him? Well, that means every time you attack anybody else near him, you're dishing it off to Victor. Well, how many clicks can Victor take before he dies with invulnerability? If it's penetrating damage on the original attack, then it's penetrating damage on the mastermind, right? So it would go through invulnerability. So if someone Psy blasts your target and you mastermind off, it's going to go through invulnerability. So I just feel like Victor's, if he had a long dial, that would be amazing. You know, if he was like a Solomon Grundy type character where he's giving mastermind to everybody and he can soak up the damage because he's got a long dial, great. It's just I'm concerned about the point investment and how quickly you're going to be giving up those points.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next up in the community group. If you want to join us at the Married with Clicks community group on Facebook, just throw a request. I generally let people in. I just need to double check that you're not spam, even though I'm not very good at it because I missed one. I missed one last week as some kind of live stream started. I was like, what are you doing on my page? Get out of here. All right. So next up, the Alpha Patron. He wants to know, is the new Jolt viable? I think he meant Jolt because he wrote Volt.
Which one, regular or Prime?
Good question. I don't think the regular one is super viable. It's as I described in our thing. If it works, it's super cool. But if it doesn't work, it's 25 points.
You can't rely on it.
No.
It's not a bad investment of 25 points, but considering it's unreliable, it's not a great one either.
Yeah.
If we assume they mean the Prime, I mean, we've never seen a Speed Force piece that ever really fully did what it was supposed to. This is maybe the best one we've seen so far, but only on the first couple clicks. So, stretch goal.
Yeah, stretch goal. Well, I mean, right after we posted the video where we were doing our piece by piece, somebody put in the comments where it's like, I had a Jolt with 6 tokens on it. Great, you did. Like, these things happen, and that's awesome, and I appreciate that you got that out there, and it's really good when it does happen, but maintaining the consistency is the key. And in a sealed environment, it's one thing. In a non-sealed, that's where things get a little bit more tricky to pull off. And then he had another one with, how important is plasticity in the current meta?
Sure. It's still important.
It's still there. It's still really good.
I mean, look at how many times, look at how prevalent sidestep is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I have to admit that I completely underestimated that power when I first saw it. I never thought that free two movement would ever be as insanely good and repositioning it. Like, I mean, it's everybody all over the place. So a power like plasticity that can help lock down people from just passively getting away easily. You know what I mean? It's totally viable. It totally has value.
Tom, anything you want to add?
No, I agree. It's very viable. It's very useful.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you actually to kind of tack on one other thing, it negates the bonus you get from powers that give you the +2 to breakaway. So like hypersonic, like leap and climb, like nimble, those powers give you the +2 to breakaway. Well, then you negate that and bring it back down to where they think they have an advantage. They're back to even again. So goes a long way towards that as well. And, just stopping ridiculous move actions that are coming around you. You can really stymie certain hypersonic actions if they're becoming problematic for you. Excuse me. So that covers that. Next, we move to the Patreon Discord. So what did the new set add to the celebrity keyword? And have we seen... This is coming from David C., who we talked about earlier in the tournament. What did the new set add to the celebrity keyword, and have we seen anything interesting in Justice League Unlimited for it so far? I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's been made me go, celebrity!
Think Justice Unlimited for celebrity?
Yeah, I mean, like, we've seen maybe 3-4 figures that are in the set.
I mean, Spider-Man is the obvious one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
Obvious call. Is there anything with celebrity? Let me just double check the keyword myself.
That's what I was just about to do too, because I don't recall there being any other ones.
There are a few. Citizen V, Wasp, and Skyn are all meh. Yeah. Moonstone is good, definitely. Very good use of 50 points if we assume that you're buying into the 5-point trade, otherwise 45. But I think Spider-Man's the big one, right?
Mm-hmm. Spider-Man's the big one. Skyn, if you can keep her on the first 2 clicks, that giving a whole team shape change, it's pretty good. So
yeah, you're right.
Well, here's the other thing, though. Would you necessarily be spending the 5 points on Moonstone because we're already building a celebrity team?
Yeah,
so
we're not really
are we even going to have
Baron Zemo team?
Yeah. And 5 points is 5 points, man. That's an ID. That's a whatever.
I mean, a lot of Thunderbolts are celebrities, but you're right. You're not always doing that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple tools, but nothing that goes celebrity now.
I will point out to you, though, that Mojo has celebrity.
I have used Mojo Celebrity Wrestlers as a team, and it is fun as heck.
Yeah, the wrestlers are the big one for me. And, of course, so is Daredevil. I mean, a great celebrity for call-ins is the Earth X Daredevil.
And also don't miss out on multi-base Madrox. He's annoying, and he has celebrity.
He has so many keywords. Wait, yeah, they did that with that one. That's right.
Yeah, stupid amount of keywords.
Yeah.
All right. David C. has another follow-up question there, or a different question. What is the point of points? That is to say, the win ranking points and rock points, do they actually do anything? So the win ranking points are basically kind of just a ranking system that doesn't do anything other than flexing the E-peen, as the kids on the internet say. The rock points do have value. I think it's 100 points gets you automatically into the day 2 of Nationals. And 300 points of rock points can get you into Worlds. You get a maximum of 300. My numbers might be wrong, so it might be 100, 200. I'm not sure. But you can max out at a certain amount. They don't expire, so like you could spend years and years and years accumulating rock points, and then eventually your rock points become your Nationals or your Worlds day 2 entry. So I just don't know what the exact number on the rock points is per se. So.
I can never remember where to find them.
Yeah.
I think Jay sent me the link like 12 times.
Yeah.
And I can never find it.
You just got to remember to Control D in the browser. It's just like
Control what?
Control D!
I use this thing. There's no Control D.
Then you go to the top where the little dots are. You click
There's
bookmarks.
Dots? Are there dots? Really?
I don't know. Look, man, you're killing me, bro. You're killing me.
You're killing me, bro.
All right, and it looks like the only question we got in the chat was how many players were in the WKO, which got answered for him, but we will answer. The New York WK had 15 players, and the Whitby one had 9. All right, so that sailed. It's time to wrap this thing up. So here we go. Jay in the chat jumped in it. 100 for nationals, 200 for events. If you go on the Rock site, there's a Google Doc in there somewhere. Awesome.
Cool.
So Tom, thank you very much for joining us today. Congratulations.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Mike, thank you very much for joining us today. Congratulations to you as well.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
And of course, I want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. You guys are awesome. You let me pay these guys every so often with a little bit of money here and there. It's not much, but it's something. Actually, I think Tom said he doesn't pay attention to his PayPal, so he might find a big surprise when he finally gets a look at it.
I found it. I appreciate it.
All right. Awesome. As well, I want to thank our friends over at MajesticCCG.com. Check out the Apex Insiders. This is your source for all things HeroClix, and the Apex Insiders is great minds talking about great things in HeroClix. It's a good bunch of players who have a really good head for the game, and they really kind of donate their thought process and their skills to their writing. And it's $3 a month. It's totally worth it. A good place to get some really good brain dumps. So check that out. Again, MajesticCCG.com and join the Apex Insiders. With that said, guys, it was a good old time playing the last set of WKO Constructeds that don't include Captain America in the Avengers. Next week, Captain America in the Avengers will be legal for your WKOs. So get some teams together with those guys and add some of those figures, because practice with those teams will help make those teams a little bit better. Have a good night, everybody.
Right.